Welcome back to the Nutrimedical Report. It is hour number 2. In the first half hour will be open lines. And there's lots of news items to explore today. Just want to give you some of the latest updates. The latest on Ebola, of course, is a new treatment provides hope for human Ebola cases. An experimental drug cocktail has cured monkeys inoculated with a lethal dose of Ebola. And, of course, we know that the one that I am watching is the monoclonal antibodies, which is ZMapp. These are going to be very expensive, very limited. We already have antipathogenics, and we don't want to talk about the word cure because we don't cure anything. What we can say is we can reduce the viral load by body hygiene using the antipathogenics, the only antipathogenics that will penetrate through the biofilm, which is our silver 100, thousands of times stronger than any other silver, diatomic Tesla-activated iodine and nutriodine, and Allicin Med, Alamax Elemed. And we also have the Alamax in its drops, as well as capsules and topical. And immunoglobulins such as Immunomax, NutriImmune, and of course the Ageless contains those as well. High-dose Power C with full vitamin K2 that can stop cytokine storms. And to stop free radicals, we have Cell Detox Glutathione, Nutritrella, and Regenerex. So there's really no excuse for anyone to die from the Ebola or any other virus. I call it personal body hygiene. Now the term inoculum means the number of organisms necessary to produce an infective state. So if you're using things like our defense wipes, if you're using a mask, an NIOSH N95 mask, if you're protecting yourself with our first line of defense kit, now our viral protection kit, that's what we called it, a viral protection kit, you can prevent getting sick. We have our NutriDefense, which I designed that'll basically destroy any viral capsid of any DNA and RNA virus, rob the body of free iron, which is necessary for pathogens to enter tissue planes, and stimulate the natural killer cell activity of the body's immune lymphocytes to kill off pathogens. So I call it body hygiene. We're not curing anything. We're building up your defenses, both natural and augmenting them with natural molecules that are far more powerful than any drug and far more safe. And that's how we approach it. Now what's going on, of course, is travel bans occurring. The UK Foreign and Commonwealth Office is blocking flights through the British Airways to Sierra Leone, Guinea, and Liberia, and recommending to avoid those unless it's absolutely essential. Of course, there's a lot of industry there, especially now in other countries like Nigeria, which is one of the largest oil producers on the planet, which is Nigeria. And there's a lot of foreign engineers there from China and elsewhere, many countries. And, of course, the situation, I think, they're saying Ebola could strike 20,000. World Health Organization says about 7 times the current number of reported cases before it could be brought under control. I don't know if they could suggest what their specific plan to bring it under control, but I don't believe them. I think this is going vertical. Ebola has different characteristics than any previous epidemic that's occurred, which started in the 70s. It's likely that this is going to rise from not 20,000 but 500,000 or more cases, and only instituting what I call we call reverse protection protocol, which means getting enough equipment to the people in Africa and the hospitals and clinics, having what we call isolation rather than group quarantine in towns or cities like they did in West Point, Monrovia, which is stupid. It increases the number of cross-infected people. Quarantining and tying areas of countries like the Democratic Republic of Congo, DRC they call it, not very democratic when they quarantine off 500 square miles and force people to stay in there and maybe get cross-infected and not have proper equipment. So this is extremely stupid. I don't trust the World Health Organization. I don't think these people are intelligent in their choices of how they decontaminate aircraft, how they control the flow of people. It's not just flying in and out of countries, because they can use all of the airlines and then get on a different airline, and before you know it, they've actually been in a country, could be carrying the virus, and could have persistent viral organisms present, like we've already discovered from research, in semen up to 60 days after infection. So the fact is that the WHO is going to drop this ball again, and I believe to a great extent it's on purpose. Other interesting research going on, the e-cigarettes. It's now discovered that e-cigarettes give high levels of nickel and chromium in toxic levels, lower levels of lead and arsenic than regular cigarettes, but they do have higher levels of these other. So side stream smoke can also affect those people who are affected by e-cigarettes. So e-cigarettes aren't completely free. They're certainly safer than cigarettes. It doesn't have the polonium, which is one of the isotopes that's concentrated by tobacco plants So even so-called organic, they talk about these organic cigarettes. There's naturally present polonium in soil, and polonium is concentrated by tobacco plants. It concentrates other radiotoxins as well, just like cesium-137. So some plants are very good at radiotoxin concentration, and tobacco plants and chrysanthemums and other flowers in the same phyla have similar characteristics. Interesting research on transcranial magnetic stimulation for mood and memory. They're showing certain areas of the brain where it can be stimulated. We use the somal pulse along with lumen photon for cranial illnesses such as depression, Asperger's syndrome, autism, depression, post-traumatic brain injury, post-chemotherapy, post-heart-lung bypass, where the ECMO machines has microclots that go to the brain. So there's a lot of uses for transcranial somal pulse and lumen photon therapy. They do help. A lot of research going on in terms of drug overdoses. What I'm seeing is the drug overdose issue is part of the problem, I think, in terms of natural drug overdoses, is that doctors are not testing like they've been ordered in Japan to have a health card that includes the DNA polymorphisms of people's ability to detoxify. And if they have certain polymorphisms, certain drugs which are classified to detoxify by certain liver enzyme pathways are not going to be detoxified, and their blood level is going to go through the ceiling. And you don't see hospitals measuring blood levels of specific marker drugs to see if they're in a toxic range that's going to cause things like heart block or seizures or other disorders. So I think it's just plain lazy and stupid when pharmacologists and hospitals and doctors don't know, and this, by the way, became law in Japan, I think about 4 or 5 years ago. Research was done in America, and it was recommended that all Americans have on their health care their DNA polymorphisms for detoxification. So when you start on giving someone, especially in their elderly years, 60 plus, 8 to 10 or plus more drugs, how the heck do they expect them to detoxify them when they're through sometimes the same pathways? So blood levels can go through the ceiling. So I'm calling out doctors on the mat and saying, you're lazy. The doctors in Japan have already done this. All citizens that have health care in Japan already have a health card that talks about their DNA polymorphisms. Also, when the government interferes with what we call empowering the public with 23andMe and other tests like lab testing direct, we want an informed public that becomes their best doctor. You need to be your own doctor. That's why I'm writing a series of books called Dr. You. And we want to make sure you understand what quantum functional medicine really is. It's how to have an operator's manual for your body, right down to your toxins in your body, your enzymes, your DNA epigenetics. And we won't get too technical, although I'll put a technical side to it so those people who want to do research can identify more advanced technologies that we're developing that are pretty, what I call Star Trek-y, which is like our QRMA, bioplasm NLS, our new somal pulse, which uses a polar magnetic field to stimulate stem cells. We have an energized magnetic field device that we're bringing online as well. I'll be probably posting that up over the weekend, so that'll be available on our sale as well. So we have lots of amazing technology, and of course I tell people to be skeptical. If you want to do testing, we can recommend specific functional medicine labs and conventional tests that the doctors could order but maybe don't, like a quantitative EEG through a PhD psychologist that's covered by your insurance, SPECT scans to look at brain blood flow. If someone gets staging for cancer, their doctor is lazy and doesn't do a spiral CT scan with a positron emission tomogram, PET scan, using fluorodeoxypositronic glucose as a marker that will tell you if a metabolically active lesion on the CT scan shows signs of the tumor has spread to other areas. And the doctors, by and large, are not doing these gold standard tests. Medical legally, the physicians are just asking you to get sued if something goes wrong. As I say, the conventional medicine is being done sloppily, and the alternative functional medicine isn't even been done at all. So doctors don't know vitamin D levels of people in hospital. If they're low, they're going to much higher risk. They don't know the rheologic blood viscosity. They don't know inflammatory heavy metal markers for people with heart failure as to why they're in heart failure, their mitochondrial function. People are either unformed or lazy. Back in a moment. Welcome back, and we have open lines. If you have any questions, you want to call in and make a statement, 800-259-5791. I'm going to touch on some of the world news. Recent analysis, and I'd like to read the reports, regular world analysis by Joel Skousen. Sometimes agree, sometimes disagree. I think his take on the fact that Russia and China have eventual plans to invade America, he has to understand these are acting as proxies for a New World Order. They really don't want to. The Chinese would like to buy America and California, not bomb it. Same with Russians. The Russians want to do business. They want to be able to not be in constant conflict. They were set up as a dialectic in opposition to America because only through the use of war, and this is a policy of some of the so-called leaders inside Russia too, only through the policy of war can permanent change be made. And Mr. Putin, they forced him now into a situation where he actually has actual troops and operations inside Ukraine. I think Ukraine is just going to turn back. As I've said, the Soviet Union never really went away. It went into kind of like if you want to call it went into a kind of a paralysis for a period of time for 25 years after the Glasnost and Perestroika incidents and the collapse of the Russian economy. But I think what you're seeing is the Russians are some of the best physicists on the planet. They've retooled their military so that they can neutralize any advanced military action, and they've proven to us that really any advanced war is obsolete. What we need to do is realize that we have a very fragile planet where the ozone layer is going away. There's a danger of coronal mass ejections. The chemical, biological, EMP, and other types of warfare make any kind of proxy war. I've ultimately put in danger expansion to a global Third World War type conflict, which we won't survive. And the few people who think they're going to survive in underground hotels, many of them will commit suicide within weeks or months of trying to be held in these underground facilities, no matter how beautiful or comprehensive they are, from grand pianos to shopping centers to parks, underground. They're not going to substitute for being in a real world, and people will lose their marbles. And I think that some of the rich and powerful people don't want to go down that path, but they know that the people who are running the world are crazy and evil, and it doesn't need to go that way. And we need to start coming together and transcending beyond what I call one or another of these satanic religions or geopolitical systems such as communism, and realize we're being steered by powerful, dark, and evil forces that want to destroy mankind and want us to kill each other, just like we see the forces in the Middle East where ISIS and now the Islamic State is actually managed by NATO and the West and the State Department on the other hand, and they start bombing them. So, they create a boogeyman, then they attack the boogeyman. This is typical. So people need to be aware the same thing goes on within medicine. They don't want people to be living extended lives where you become your own best doctor. You know how to eat organic food. You know how to grow it. You know how to discern that GMO is being put in. I read the latest report that even though the Environmental Protection Act basically banned trans fatty acids, is still 1 in 10 prepared foods that's now served across America or in restaurants or in grocery stores. That's ridiculous. They still make a mercury alkali extracted fructose corn syrup, which means every fructose corn syrup, it's not just the fructose, it's the mercury. You're getting mercury poisoning. This is not even open to dispute. I mean, anybody who wants to debate it with me is going to get, as I say, they're going to get badly intellectually beaten up. I mean, it's just the way it is. And the fact is the mercury is not vitamin M. Many things that are going on right now just don't make sense when people are being treated with depression with antidepressant drugs, and really it doesn't defeat depression. It's a dissociative anesthetic, puts you in an altered state of mind, and you can see it on your brainwave patterns, SPECT scan, quantitative EEG. It's been proven with neuroscience now that these lying psychiatrists try to pretend they have antidepressants when they don't. They put people into a dissociative state, which is not antidepressant. Antidepressant is improving neurotransmitter levels, improving brain voltages, coherence patterns, basal nuclei firing patterns, and the balance of their 3 different groups of cells in the reticular activating system. People say you can't quantify those. They've talked to the wrong doctor. I can. I can measure organic acid metabolites and platelet levels of neurotransmitters. We can do imaging studies. We can do quantitative EEG. That's just wrong to suggest that you can't do that. So we need to start moving to what we call functional medicine, science-based practice, where people who are, number one, real health providers need to have, number one, more brains. They need to be not lazy. They need to be not chasing they need a system like Eisenhower talked about with healthcare, which I got a recent email from a very intelligent listener, Steve. I won't mention his last name. And he mentioned the fact that the Eisenhower had the same policy, that just like they pay the military on their years of experience and training, doctors should be paid on their user experience and training. It's my plan that there should be a federal and state tax that flows through to the county, not the state, that is then mentioned by the county and hands it over to the primary care doctors who hire everybody else, from chiropractors to surgeons. No one has to have health insurance. No one has to worry about pre-existing conditions. And even visitors are taken care of that have come to this country. And the idea that doctors, if they need time off, or if they're sick, or if they need to retire, or go to part-time like female doctors, they don't end up with, we get rid of malpractice and have mediation. We don't have any state licensure and a bunch of pinheads that try to decide on the care of other doctors. Doctors are basically artists based on science. Medicine is an art. It's not a science. It's an art based on science. But when you have neither science, which most of these doctors don't have, and they don't have the art, you have neither. You have a scamtastic system that is harming people. And there are some very good things in medicine which can be discerned. Everything from plastic surgery after bad burns to the trauma centers, etc. And you have some very bad things, which is the overuse of treatments. For example, when you can do a stress treadmill test, why would you do a Lexi scan, which is equivalent to 500 chest x-rays or radiation? Why would you do radiotherapy when you're actually mistreating what cancer is? It's an escape phenomenon of cells trying to survive a toxic environment. Why would you treat depression when you don't know what's going on in the brain itself? Are there activated microglia and neurotransmitter imbalances? Is there breakdown in the blood-brain barrier, and how do you repair those? How do you quantify that you fix those? You don't need double-blind placebo-controlled trials. You need imaging and advanced biochemical and genetic tests to identify the markers of what your physiological model is that you're trying to correct. And because we don't have that intelligent approach in medicine, the same way with geopolitics or energy, we also hide discoveries we've made, like tokamak fusion reactors. We should have underground disposal, high-speed trains to dispose of all garbage and recycle everything down to the molecular level. There should be no such thing as garbage deposits or giant oceans of debris. There's an area 3 times the size of Texas in the North Pacific that basically is a debris field. It's ridiculous. We have the ozone layer being destroyed, so-called, to protect us from incoming nuclear weapons by putting nanoparticles in the upper atmosphere and steering weather systems, or setting up a system where they can trigger off earthquakes and volcanoes using plasma physics. And when people want to dispute this, I can explain to them in exquisite technical and scientific detail how it's done. So I take all takers. If you think you know better than Dr. Deagle, if you think you have a better scientific theory to explain things, by all means, call in. The fact is that we need to start challenging things with something scientific that can be proven rather than conjecture. And just electing a different political system or thinking that, putting your trust where it shouldn't be put, as I say, make you a good consumer of health care, legal care, political action. You need to be the sovereign in control, not the other people. You need to be Dr. You. Back in a moment with hour number 2 with Ryan. We'll be back in a moment. Welcome back to the Nutrimedical Report, and we're joined by Ryan. Ryan, it's a Labor Day sale. We have the 7 for Heaven sale, and people are out there ordering like crazy. And we're shipping all around the world. We've added 53 countries to our Canada-U.S. market. And by the way, if you have another country that you want us to add automated, we can do it in a matter of a couple of days. And we do have protocols for support of restoration of your health for virtually anything. We have more advanced technology like the QRMA, functional medicine testing like lab testing, direct.com, Dunwoody Labs, other labs to actually measure where you're out of balance. And we have the best nutraceuticals on the planet and free consults. I mean, what better formula for getting people well? And we actually tell people what conventional medical therapies and investigations are good and what surgery is okay or reasonable, what kind of investigations. I had a consult this morning with a gentleman who said, should I do a colonoscopy? I said, of course. But, don't do XYZ. Do take our nutraceuticals for cancer, such as Maligna Block, Maligna Rest, which of course is the sulforaphane glycosinolate. Do take Power C and full vitamin K2. Do take enzymes to strip off the fibronectin capsule of the tumor if it's positive. And there's ways of monitoring if you're getting better, like spiral CT and positron emission tomographic assessment. But to be honest with you, most doctors, including oncologists, are damned lazy, and they won't do even the gold standard of the conventional tests to see that the patient's actually in full remission or not. So I get panic calls all the time from people who've gone to clinics, not only here in America, but Mexico, and then they discover that their tumor is not gone, it's returned because their doctors were sloppy. Prevention. Everybody every day should be taking preventive things. Get your mineral levels up. Take your Vitamin Mineral Max Minerals Plus. Take Indiamines to maximize that. Take, if we find on your Creo-RMA test, which is one of the best machines now, it's on a special sale too, you need to take the right Nutrimeds, and you need to start modifying it every month or so as to what your body needs. And we have amazing reports for the last year that people have been on the QRMA. Ryan, what's your favorite nutraceuticals in the Nutrimed line, and why would you recommend them to the average person out there that has, the more common problems: acid reflux, depression, anxiety attacks, bowels that are in an uproar all the time whenever they eat anything, especially when they go out. People with bad insomnia. These are really common problems. The conventional doctors just toxically load people up with drugs, and the patients usually develop new problems, new health issues, because they haven't dealt with their intracellular mineral levels are low, magnesium. They haven't dealt with their autonomic nervous system's out of whack, so they need something like Calm Mind. How would you approach it? What are your favorites?
Well, I think one of the best things that people can look at in this day and age with so many digestive issues is to look at something like GastroHeal. GastroHeal is a patented combination of zinc and carnosine, and this is a remarkable thing. It's a chewable formulation. It'd be a lot like people thinking about like chewable Tums, except in this case, you're not suppressing acid, you're not inducing acid production. What you're doing is you're stimulating repair of the cells that line from the mouth to the esophagus, to the stomach, through the intestinal tract. All these people that are stuck on all these different suppressing acid products and trying to calm their stomachs down because when they eat, they just don't feel good. This is one of the easiest things they can do to overall go after those issues known as kind of the general symptoms of gastritis. But it's also very effective at killing off H. pylori and helping with ulcer recoveries. In studies at 6 and 8 weeks long, they're looking at typical 60 to 80% recovery of the ulcerated area just by chewing these. And they're also very dynamic because they stop the damage to the gut lining that occurs when you take an NSAID, and also alcohol exposure. So I know this is a party-type weekend, for a lot of people, and being able to use something like that, at least one a day, is dramatic at stopping the damage to the gut. Because when people go, my stomach just doesn't feel good, well, it took a long time for you to damage it. This can repair it very, very quickly, but you need to keep using a way to protect yourself if you're going to keep using NSAIDs or alcohol and things like that.
Yeah, I don't even tolerate people saying that they're going to continue NSAIDs. First off, let's go through the list. Strips off your gut lining so you get ulcers. Crosses the blood-brain barrier so you get depression and dementia. I mean, we get people with transient global amnesia caused by NSAIDs. It causes heart failure. It damages the mitochondria. It causes problems with coronary artery inflammation and actually can induce coronary vascular disease. Chronic myopathy, muscle problems, joint problems, speeds up the degeneration of glycosaminoglycans for your cartilage and your joints. I mean, the list is so long. I don't want to waste all our time going through that.
Yeah.
But I tell people, don't take that, and avoid like the plague steroid shots in your joints. Avoid like the plague disease-modifying drugs for chronic arthritis. We have natural approaches that are far superior and safer, not going to end up making you pick up a pathogen from one of your pets that never affects humans, except when you're on these drugs, which, by the way, these drugs like infliximab, metazolimab, etc., will give you a much higher risk of weird cancers like lymphoma. So when doctors say, well, we got to give you this drug to stop your psoriasis or your rheumatoid arthritis, think twice that 2 or 3 or 5 years from now, you might be told by your doctor you've got a weird-ass lymphoma. Excuse my English, but I mean, it really ticks me off that these doctors are doing this when they don't advise the patient that there's a risk they're going to have a suppression of their normal immune surveillance against cancer.
Yeah. Well, hey, I want to note on that. You said it earlier about Calm Mind, though.
Calm Mind's wonderful, isn't it?
It's such a remarkable thing, and actually, I got some feedback on Calm Mind the other day too about individuals that end up doing a lot of grinding at night and end up with kind of sore jaws, and using Calm Mind in the evening, right after dinner, as a way to see how that affects, the relaxation during the evening time and the sleep hours, so that people know who they are out there that end up clenching. You wake up the next day and you feel like you've been in a gum chewing contest for 10 hours.
Yeah, I thought of several taglines for Calm Mind. Calm Mind, here's the first tagline: better than booze, better than MJ, better than anything else you want to try, better than the toxic drugs your doctor's going to try to convince you so you can tolerate the world, or your toxic relationship that you're having. So
it's awesome. It's a really awesome formulation. So anxiety, people that do have all these kinds of craving issues, other stress-related issues, and then by using it, the myelinositol in there serves as a secondary transmitter messaging molecule, and so that means those neurotransmitters that you're trying to produce, those neurotransmitters that are produced in the gut lining, which we're just discussing about how messed up people's guts are. There's more of these neurotransmitters being promoted or produced out of the gut than they are out of the brain itself. And so that's another reason why Dr. Bill is so adamant about making sure your gut is healthy. And if you have a digestive disorder, it's only a matter of time before it links into some kind of neurological twist, the depression, anxiety, and other types of issues. So
and it turns out that a lot of psychiatric diseases actually got related. We found out, for example, that children that develop Asperger's syndrome and autism, they have an extra amount of these specific chromic molecules that are analogs of norepinephrine and dopamine in the brain that are generated by anaerobic bacteria in their lower gut. So they have a dysbiosis that you can pick up on an organic acid test like the organics that can show you, and Dr. William Shaw has done a lot of work at Great Plains Laboratory, is one of the top organic chemists in the world, that children that have people that have schizophrenia and other mental disorders have abnormal organic acids because primarily their gut's screwed up. I mean, it's amazing. People say, well, where's my second brain? It's not just, that comedian that talks about the man with two brains. Well, everybody has two brains. You got a brain in your skull and you got a brain in your gut called the celiac plexus and all the ganglia. And it's not a minor brain. It's a lot of neurological tissue down there. And the actual hormone output by your gut, for example, there's more 5-HTP and tryptophan put out by your gut cells in your liver than by your brain. And people don't understand that. They wonder, well, why do I get depressed because I eat certain foods? It's because you're generating molecules that lock onto the opioid receptor in your brain, and you're screwing up your brain chemistry because you're eating things that your body can't tolerate. If we fix it, depression goes away. And we also allow methylation, give you Sam-methyl and BH4 biopter and Cognition Plus. All of a sudden the brain says, hey, I don't need to be depressed. I don't need to be anxious. I can just slide through the day and all the stresses of life and smile. Welcome back, Ryan. If you were to pick the top 2 or 3 conditions that Americans suffer that are out of proportion to the rest of the world, and we have a solution right here at Nutrimeds, and you want to pick, let's say, one product or 2 products for, say, each condition, what would those top 2 or 3 things be, Ryan? And, we've been working on these products for a number of years now, and we have protocols that basically will address virtually any condition. We're not talking about healing or curing anything. What we're talking about is bringing things back into physiological balance. And when we do that, the body heals itself. I mean, we can't heal the body, but the body heals itself when you get the mineral levels back, the probiotics in the gut, the enzymes back for digestion, neurotransmitter levels normalized because you've normalized detoxification, removed heavy metals, you allow the amino acids to be converted to neurotransmitters. In other words, you restore biochemistry, you restore epigenetics. What are the top 3 conditions that you think Americans suffer that are out of proportion to the rest of the world? And we have solutions, and it's not just Americans. We see it in Australians, South Africans, and we're now seeing it in more populations around the world, like in China or Malaysia or, in other countries, where they're adopting more Western-style diets and they're developing new health problems, obesity, diabetes, depression, chronic fatigue, hypertension, all kinds of stuff that, in many cultures wasn't around 30, 40 years ago when they ate their native foods. So what are the main conditions you think that we need to address?
Well, I think, pressing the reset button, if you will. We've been assaulted by so many, bizarre circumstances with our environment, also the foods that we expose ourselves to, sometimes, unwillingly and unknowingly, what we've exposed ourselves to over the years has added up to cause this really, profound problem in our body. So I love something like using the shakes, where you look at, like, life support. I guess if I had to pick one thing, right off the bat, I'd be looking at something like that because it's so comprehensive in its ability to, one, nourish the body with good protein, carbohydrates, and fats, and two, nourish the body with all the micronutrients that are oftentimes missing in a diet, but then the nutrients like the herbal nutrients to help control inflammatory response in the body, and also to support phase 1, phase 2 detoxification, a lot of glutamine to support the rebuilding of the gut lining, which we were just talking about, how messed up that is. Oh, right. It is a profound shake. I know you like to use it, and then comboing it, as you do, if people have blood sugar disorders, I'd look at something like glycemic mealbomine. Either use in conjunction with it, or look at something like Ageless for immune issues, and those are all really powerful.
Yeah,
big differences.
And a number of people ask me how I put my formula together for my super shake that I literally have for breakfast and lunch. And I might have some sprouted multigrain bread in the morning, like 1 or 2 slices. But the shake is composed of glycemics, Ageless Energize, Life Support. I'll make a cod liver liquid, and I put a lot in, probably 60 mils, and when I put my big blender. 3 dropperfuls, not just a little bit, 3 dropperfuls of Nutridyne, ALC 1000 D-ribose. I'll put in about 10 to 12 ounces, at least in that big blender of 2+ liters of Khalifa, which is the toasted almond coconut milk that doesn't have any extra sugar, like no cane sugar. And it's pure water system ice cubes, about a dozen or so, plus water. That's amazing. I mean, when you put out all those things together, you don't, literally, this is your prepper supply. I know, I just watched a little part of a segment of the Doomsday Preppers. These drinks should be your main prepper supply. Yes, you may want to have canned beans and dried beans and dehydrated, freeze-dried food and other things. But if you want to be healthy in a very toxic, dangerous, and stressful world, whether it's right now or if there was an Armageddon type of scenario where something stupid happened, that we either cause ourselves or it happens, you want to have these drinks around. They're amazing.
Well, that's a very good point, because you can look at MREs or anything like that, and you're like, really, those are only designed to establish basic caloric values to give you subsistence. But
to keep you on pulse and make sure you're
able to tolerate, like you said, stress, the amount of sickness that'll be present, things like that. It's like, this makes just total sense to use it.
Right. In fact, one of the things I tell people when they're hygiene, when you're using these drinks and then you add to it other things like our antipathogenics like Allicin Med to prevent EBOLA. And what we're talking about preventing, we're talking about body hygiene. Because when you have antipathogenics present like our Allicin Med, basically virus can't survive in your system. So one of the first things we notice is people say, gee, my diverticulosis hasn't flared up anymore. Or my inflammatory bowel settled, or my joints don't hurt because you're reducing their endotoxin load in their body. They'll notice that if they're taking things like GastroHeal, they don't have acid reflux anymore, or they don't have proctocolitis, or their inflammatory bowels, celiac disease, or ulcerative colitis has settled down. And people say, well, how can that be? Or if they're trying to prevent cancer, simply start taking Malignant Block every day. And that's, by the way, it's in Ageless, which is why you're going to age less, which also repairs your DNA. People don't realize every day your body's repairing your DNA. It's in Ageless. It's in the Malignant Block. So besides just blocking malignancy, it repairs your DNA every day. If you want to lengthen your telomeres, take Ageless, which is going to lengthen your telomeres. You don't have to go to the astragalus formulas, which are a different formula for lengthening telomeres. The most powerful formula is Ageless.
But one of the things that makes it powerful, too, is that sulforaphane glucosinolate, and that's the broccoli seed extract, and we know a mechanism behind that is a pathway called the NRF2 pathway. And when we look at oxidative stress in the body, one of the things that the NRF2 pathway does is really reduce what they call the lipid peroxide markers like T-bars. And T-bars is looked at as a major kind of cellular aging marker. And so what you're looking at here is not just in Ageless, but in many of the Nutrimed line, like the Regenerex formula and many other cell defense, you're using mechanisms with these specialized herbals to enhance this NRF2 pathway. It's awesome. Yeah.
What's amazing to me is how simple you can also validate these things. One of the problems, it takes a little effort. For example, I tell people one of the best things you can do is to get a QRMA machine and then test yourself and your family members. And if you don't want to do that, you can do functional medicine tests. We have labs like Lab Testing Direct, Dunwoody Labs, Great Plains Laboratory, etc., 23andMe. And soon the shackles will be off 23andMe, so they'll be able to release all the genetic studies that they're doing on gene polymorphisms and also relatives. I like the relative side of it that they have, where it tells you who you're related to around the world and all the different members. I think there's now close to 1 million members that have joined 23andMe. What's important is that people need to start taking control of their own health. They need to realize your doctor is going to know less than you if you research a topic. If you spend 100 hours listening to this program, reading the materials that we refer to, looking at the wellness conditions, checking out the products and reading them, you're going to realize Dr. Bill's, let's say Omega Supreme is not anybody else's omega fatty acids. 900 milligrams of the highest quality, non-rancid, processed on the ship omega-3 oils are completely different. Our Omega Supreme Krill is the only oil proven in laboratory testing to actually have astaxanthin. When we look at things like Semethyl, it's in a nitrogen sachet. And I can tell you, I love this stuff for making you feel calm, for detoxifying heavy metals, for improving your level of BH4 biopterin, which is not only for depression, but also for releasing nitric oxide. Semethyl. You can't compare it to any other product anywhere in the world. And
yeah, that's very unique. Very unique. When people spend a lot of money on what they call SAMe products, they should be really looking at Semethyl, because instead of using the old spool and terracotta tablets, you got a powder that can go right in the lining of the gum and cause a very immediate effect.
Right. And by the way, the other thing it does is it helps repair joints. If you want to repair joints, we use our Joint Performance and our Tendon Mender and our Collagen Max, and then we Mountain Red Velvet. But don't forget Semethyl. Your body, when it creates the glycosaminoglycans, needs methylation to cross-link and form cartilage in your joint, sort of the hyaluronic acid polymer in your eyeballs and between your tissues so you don't see wrinkles, and the hydroviscous layer in your joints. And guess what? It's methylation dependent. So when people get really aggressive osteoarthritis, besides the conventional things that people think, well, Joint Performance, Tendon Mender, Collagen Max, Mountain Red Velvet, Semethyl. And they'll notice, like, hey, my joints don't hurt anymore. I'm not depressed. I'm calm. It's because methylation deals with heavy metals, building joint cartilage, correcting neurotransmitter imbalances, making digestive enzymes. People say, I don't digest my food. They did a test like a CDSA2 at Genova Metametrics. They add Semethyl, and all of a sudden they're making digestive enzymes again, even if they're 80. Believe it or not, you can correct your biochemistry at any age. It doesn't matter how old you are or how much illness you've been through, we can correct it. Thank you, Ryan. Enjoy the Labor Day holiday weekend with your family.
You too.
Have lots of pool time, lots of relaxing time. As I tell most people, try to stay off the freeways. It's as a former trauma emergency burn doctor, it's one of the things that I learned from working in emergency on those weekends is it's dangerous to travel when everybody else is having too much fun. So the best fun is at home, by the pool, and the Barbie. We'll be back in a minute with hour number 3. You don't want to miss it. Preparedness, Earth Changes, Ebola, everything else, preparedness. Hour coming up with John Moore and Ann Morris.